Good evening. What's the highlight of the week? Thank you for joining us again tonight. This is MIT Podcast. MIT stands for Mindset into Transformations. I am Benjamin Huang, your host tonight. Here we have conversation with people who have done extraordinary things in their life. We discuss the story of success and the mindset drive them into achieving the impossible. Communication is a critical soft skill. Real estate is no exceptions. Buying, selling, renting, finding lenders, tenants, talking to property manager, attorneys, all require appropriate communication. This is a very topic that I think most real estate investors ignore, but yet to be one of the most important topic to my opinion. Our special guest today is Maria Fristrom. She is not only a real estate investor, but also an artist and designer to me. First time I met Maria, she was talking the topic of communication, which I learned a whole lot within the 30-minute session. I know she knows a lot more than what I can ever imagine. So today it's my pleasure to welcome Maria to our podcast. Thanks for coming to our show, Maria. How is your day?
Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much for having me. Well, funny enough, it's the evening for me because I am currently in Finland. And I think we're like 8 or 9 hours ahead of you. But my evening is good.
Yes.
I've had a good day so far. Thank you. How about you?
Pretty good, pretty good. And Maria, I really appreciate you, coming to our podcast. I know you have done a lot of work, not only in real estate but also in the design work and artwork. I've been following your Instagram for some time since we first met, actually, and and the content that you're putting out is so different compared with other people's, and I don't think I'll be able to ever forget the lesson that I learned from you. So just to get started, Maria, do you mind give us a quick high level background introductions to people who don't know you yet?
Yeah. I'd love to hear more about what it is that I was able to teach you, Ben, but to give a high level of me, my background, let's start at my job in Silicon Valley. So I have a background in communication. I used to work at a comms agency called Duarte as an account manager, and I loved that job. I got to meet some of the smartest and most creative people in the world. Duarte is the leading agency in storytelling when it comes to presentations and presentation design. And I worked 80-hour weeks, as you do in Silicon
Wow.
Valley when you have clients and fires to put out. But I loved it. I got to travel the world, and it was really cool. But then I got pregnant, and that changed everything. So I'm at this point, I've bought my first rental property, and into that, I poured all of our savings into it. I was 35 years old at that point. We couldn't afford buying our own home in California yet. So instead, I bought this rental in Colorado, in Fort Collins, and I distinctly remember sitting in the massage room of the company, and I'm hooked to this machine at this point, and this machine is like sucking the youth and glory out of me, and it's a breast pump, right? So I've had my first kid. I sit there, I'm prepping for a meeting, and I felt like I didn't have 15 minutes to just sit there. So I'm sitting with my computer, and I have this is very graphic for you, Ben. You're like, too much information. But I'm sitting with like a hands-off tube thing that allows you to have the boob pump do both boobs at the same time. So I'm like typing away on my computer, and I hear myself thinking, what the hell, Maria? What are you doing here? Meanwhile, my kid is at some sort of like $2,000 kid kennel. And I thought, I can't keep doing this. I need to find my way to freedom. So that's when I decided that I was going to go balls to the wall with real estate investing. And fast forward, a few months later, we moved back to Finland, which is where I was born. And I I was pregnant with the second baby. So I went from being this 80-hour-a-week working Silicon Valley career woman into becoming a stay-at-home mom. So
It's a big change.
huge change. Yeah. And I sat there at like the side of the playground with my kid pregnant, and I'm like, I am so bored and I'm so lonely. This is not me. So I decided to go full into real estate investing, and I did at that point. However, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know how to do anything yet at that point. So and I also realized that I couldn't be better than the ones that were already there. I couldn't compete with like the huge sharks, and I couldn't compete with the ones who had jobs and incomes, or had network and had all the knowledge. So I'm like, okay, if I can't be better, could I be different? And I think that's when I found my secret sauce. So at this point, when I looked at everything that was out there in terms of rentals, I noticed two things. One was they were not designed. They all looked the same, right? They were these cold ice boxes, unpersonal, and a lot of them were in terrible shape. And the same thing went with the landlording. The landlording was kind of impersonal and not very focused on client service, rather just, I don't know, landlords were seen as vultures, I guess, taking advantage. So I'm like, what if that looked different? So that's when I started my business, where my motto is to create homes with heart and do landlording with love. And what that means is doing things differently, right? So putting a lot of thought into how they look and how I want my tenants to feel in their homes. I want them to be proud of their homes. And I spend a lot of time and effort on creating that using colors and textures and design. And then on top of that, creating an openness, right? So I ask all of my tenants a lot of questions like, why do you need to move? And where are you moving from? And what do you do? So it's only fair that I tell them the same about me. So my ads always begin with me telling about who am I? I'm the owner. Here's my motto. Here's what I believe in. And also tell a little bit about, where I'm from and all that. And that's enabled me to get to know them better as well. So
And
that's
this
when
is
it kind of
probably
started.
why. Yeah, sorry. This is probably why the other day I was looking at your Instagram post. You're saying that your tenants are the best, are all from heaven, right? I mean, there's just share the story again with our audience on what you have experienced from your tenants and how great they are.
Yeah. A lot of times you hear these horror stories about tenants and how they're a pain in the ass to work with and this and that. So I'm like, well, you'll never believe what happened to me. There's this one time my daughter was a newborn and I had given the keys to the tenant a couple days early. And people say, don't do that, right? But I did. And then you'll never believe what happened when I came in to do the final cleanup, which was a lot because there was a renovation. So it was like the cleanup after the renovation, right? So I come in and I look around and I'm like, what the hell? It was spanking clean. And I'm like, nobody else has the key except for the tenant. So I call him up and I'm like, dude, what the hell? You clean? Did you clean the apartment? Like, that you didn't have to do this, right? And this is what he said. He's like, well, Maria, I know that you have a lot on your plate, that you have the brand new baby. So it's no problem. I just thought I could do that for you. So he was like a young single guy too. And everybody's like, oh, be careful with the young single men. And I don't know, it just changed everything for me. The mindset of me giving him the keys a couple days early showed trust. So I don't know, he showed appreciation back. So
Exactly.
I think doing good is good business.
I think, Maria, what I love about you when I first see you, was that you are just like a magnet, and you attract people who are sharing the same value and sharing the same mindset, and really take care of the people you are doing business with or the people around you. That is how, you always get the good tenant, you always get the best people to deal with. And maybe, I mean, to me, I see that to be a very first step of success, you know in terms of communication, right? You have to let people trust you first before they even willing to communicate with you. Do you see that way? I mean, how does these things really impact on your success in communication?
Whoa, I think there's a lot to unpack in that question.
Please.
I 100% agree. I think, well, number one, thank you for saying that, for seeing me that way. I uh, I think that is one of the ways that I've been able to also create these partnerships with brands. And let me unpack that a little bit. So, for me to be able to do things differently and to use design and to put in awesome material into these apartments, I needed to understand what brands value and what they need. So for me, I'm like, okay, well, they're going to need marketing materials. They're going to need photos, high quality photos and videos that they can use in their channels. And at this point, I had maybe a couple thousand followers on Instagram. And I'm realizing there's not much I can give them in terms of followers, but I can
Mhm.
give them the assets. And the way I approached them was values based, right? So, one, I chose companies that shared the same values with me. A lot of smaller family owned companies, like I was, that was something that we shared that I could touch base on, right? And this was something that we talked about when it comes to communication. You find common ground, you find something that you share. So that was a way that I approached them. And then value from the other side is, how can I give them value? It's not about them giving me free stuff, which is
Right.
basically what I asked for. But I approached them with, hey, do you need help with creating content for your marketing channels? Here's what I can provide you. And what I did is I gave them my design eye, but I also gave them awesome photography. And for the photography, I did these collaborations as well. So uh, to go back to your question that I'm sure I didn't even answer, but uh, yeah, listening to the audience and understanding what it is that they need. And I think that's where it comes to the tenants as well for me. I think about, what was it I needed when we moved back to Finland? I wanted to have a home. I didn't want to live in an ice box. I wanted something that felt personal and different, and I couldn't find that. So that's why I started creating that. And as a tenant, I wanted something that I could be proud of and like invite friends over for dinner, and I wanted a place that I could feel relaxed and be energized and all that jazz. So I think that's where everything came from. I started to create that for my tenants. Does that answer your question at all?
It does answer the question in a much more layer than I can ever imagine, I have to say. Since the first time I met you, I learned from you for the first 30 seconds. There are a lot that hit me, in the next, I would even say, 30 days. Um, Looking at the supply and the demand on the market is something that most real estate investor would care for, right? No matter you're buying a small rental or you're buying a large apartment complex, this is definitely something that people will look at. But what people are looking at are the demands from the people, need a basic sheltering, instead of
Right.
the deeper need of having a home, having somewhere that they can feel like they belong to. and there are huge demands behind the basic need of shelter that I was able to see from you enlightening me, looking at this direction. So you are not only not trying to be better, you're also not trying to be only different. You're actually trying to be unique, because there are not many people are trying to fulfill the demand behind the basic shelter need. Is that the right understanding, or like what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it comes down to not wanting to be a commodity, right? I don't want to do the same that everybody else does, but it also goes deeper than that. For me, it's about passion and what brings me joy. And there's so much joy in beauty for me, and seeing beauty where others don't, and seeing that potential in apartments and houses and areas. And it goes beyond. I know it sounds like woo woo and soft, but there's something about really making a difference. I know that if I buy an asset or an apartment or a property that's in bad shape, it's a commodity. It's shelter. Somebody would move in, they would pay me, and that would be that, right? But if I make it into this beautiful home, somebody probably who would take better care of it move in. It would be better for that person because they would probably have a better life if they lived in a home that they took care of and that they got joy from. It would be better if it's an apartment. The apartment complex, the neighbors would be better off. If the neighbors are better off, the area is better off. Like, you're actually making a difference at this point. Like, the impact that I can have on people's lives and society that way is pretty sweet. So kind of going back to like doing good is always good business. And I think the comment about the commodity, not wanting to be a commodity, that's a tough word, commodity.
The same difficulty.
Yeah, I'm so glad. English is not your first language either, huh?
No, it's not. But
is it your second or third? How many languages do you speak? Third. Same. Three. Wow. Yep. Respect. What was I going to say? Yeah, you asked about the uniqueness. Yeah. Have you heard of have you heard about the Ikigai concept?
Ikigai? No.
Ikigai. Yeah, it's this Japanese concept of finding what you love, what the world is willing to pay for, and what you're good at. I think those are the ones. Yeah. And it's where those circles unite. That's your Ikigai, and that's your purpose, if you will. So when you find the thing that you love doing and that you're actually good at and that people are willing to pay for, that the world needs, that's your sweet spot.
Awesome. Maria, if you allow me, I want to have the next connection to basically how these mindset, how these uniqueness have helped you exceed or accelerate your journeys on real estate, right? Because a lot of people may be thinking, oh yeah, you are just treating you're basically just treating your rental just like your home. But profit wise, it's not as good, or things like that. What do you have in response to that too?
Oh, I love that question so much. Okay, so it's not all just soft. There's actual business sense behind it, right? So being able to forge these relationships with brands. So brand collaborations where I got the products for free or at a lower price, or sometimes they even paid me, right? So I got the products for free, and this is saving thousands of dollars on every project, right? And then on top of that, I was even paid for the brand collaborations. So that obviously gives me a result, the bottom line for me. But what that also enabled was I saw an opportunity that, hey, maybe I could help other investors do this as well, right? So I went from being this DIY renovator, one property at a time in Finland, into now doing like 7-figure deals as a partner and getting an equity position against that. And right now we're doing a project in Texas where I provide the knowledge that I have in design. And on top of that, also the brand collaborations. So it's not just hiring an interior designer, but I'm a real estate investor that will come in as a partner. And then on top of that, I can share the benefits of the relationships that I have with the brands and the better prices or the free products that I'm able to give. And a lot of interior designers have that, but they don't have incentive to share that with their clients, right? That's something that they keep on their bottom line. So that was a huge, huge shift for me that recently happened. So, and it's easy now to go back and see like all those steps that I took along the way, they led to this point. But I didn't necessarily see it from the get-go. I just knew that there's power in being different, and there's power in growing your brand and growing your personal brand. And that starts with having the right values that other, brands share with you. And then on top of that, wanting to do good. And then from there, it's kind of taken me on this journey of growing that Instagram account and creating these connections with that community and everything, and the partnerships that I've gotten through that. Because to give you an example, it was really Instagram that led me to a dinner with Brandon Turner. You want to hear that story?
Please, yes. Let me bookmark it. 1 sec. Please.
So people are like, dude, you're from Finland. How come you end up at a dinner next to Brandon Turner in Nashville? And it started with Instagram. And it started with me recording all of the DIY stuff, and especially DIY fails, because that happens all the time. Like this one time I was putting in a sink into the, what's that called? The kitchen, damn it, what's that called? The
countertop?
Not the countertop. Yeah. So I was putting in a sink into the countertop, and I made the hole too big. So the sink goes like poof, straight through it. So I have to like take the countertop to the dump. And here's the kicker. I did it twice. Yep.
Wow.
So definitely, if you guys listening take anything away from this, it's measure twice, cut once. So I have this video of me like throwing shit into the dumpster. I'm like, here I go again. The second countertop going into the dumpster. And investor girl Britt, she and I started talking because we were both doing these DIY renovations, and we became friends online. And then a few months later, I'm like, hey, dude, are you going to Nashville? And that was the first BP Con. So I fly in. I had 2 babies at that point. I was even pregnant at that time. So I pay like $2,000 to go to this conference. I knew no one. And then at this conference, Britt's like, hey, Maria, come join us for dinner. I'm like, okay. And then I sit down, and I sit next to Brandon, and everybody's there. And that's how I got to know them. And a few steps forward, that's also how I was invited to the Maui Mastermind. Probably, was it a year later? And every step kind of just fell into place.
Right.
Yeah. So 2 lessons in that. 1, go to events. And that's how we met too, right, Ben? We met at the Bigger Pockets conference in San Diego just now. So
I'm so
that would be one.
I'm so glad that I went, and so glad that I was able to meet you there. Otherwise, I couldn't really learn those, these things from you. Those are extremely valuable to me.
Yeah. And then maybe the second learning is share your story. right? So had I not shared all the crap that happened
Yes, you
at
have.
that point, like all the
Yes.
fails, Britt wouldn't have connected with me because she's like, dude, I feel you. But it's just authenticity, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I think that's also one key, to just be like, there's value in my uniqueness,
For sure,
and the
for
world
sure. And
needs exactly that.
exactly. And investor girl Brit, she has also been doing a lot of DIYs herself, and she's been filming a lot of DIYs that she's doing it, herself. So you guys apparently love real estate, and not just loving the 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 business or the profit behind it. You're really enjoying the process, doing all the works, and like like you have mentioned, maybe at the time we met, you can learn the mistake that other people make, but you can't, I mean, lots of time you can't really replicate the success, right? Because everybody have a different journey to success, but mistake is something that you can truly learn from people. So like you just said, right, measure twice, cut once is probably the valuable lesson to many people, right?
Yeah. I just hope that I'd learn from my mistakes on that one. I just ordered kitchen cabinet doors, and they were too small. So I think my lesson now is I should not be measuring anything ever. And I think that's true for both me and Britt. We, both of us used to be DIY, and we still like to do some projects, but both of us are moving into bigger projects, doing more partnerships, and doing commercial real estate for both of
Awesome.
us. So, but she's been a true inspiration for me. She's leading the way. So, um,
Perfect.
yeah, just
Perfect.
in addition to that.
Perfect. Maria, shall we talk about your current focus? Like you're saying that you're moving to commercial. Like, what is your focus right now? Because you probably are not just keep buying, one units here and there and renovate to the degree that you would love, right? What is your current focus, and what is your long term goal?
Yeah, right now we're working on a cluster of 6 townhomes. It's a ground up development in Bryan, Texas, that I do with Katie Neeson. She is Renovation Wranglers on Instagram. And I'm Maria, by the way, I'm Maria Loves Real Estate. Come join me.
Please.
So we're doing the partnership, and if you're at all interested, we're showing all the steps, both on her Instagram and on mine. So that'll be really cool. So I think one of my lessons this year is that you can do cool shit with other people. It sounds so simple, but for me, I've grown up with this idea that I have to do it myself, or there's some sort of pride in showing that you do the work, and asking for help. It's always been hard for me. And then some of the bigger deals, I've always been afraid of that. Like I kept saying I'm afraid. And then I went to this mastermind, and they're like, can you stop saying that you're afraid? Because you're not. And then I realized, well, I'm not if I do it with a partner, for instance. So
Right.
instead of me trying to get into commercial real estate and starting to do ground up developments, instead, Katie and I were talking, and she's like, hey, what if you got an equity position and we could utilize your design skills in this and your brand collaborations? And that's how it all started. So we're in January, we'll be breaking ground, and I it's just the coolest project ever. I'm super excited. So definitely want to do
And that is
more things
Uniqueness.
like that. Yeah. Yeah. And it's also at the same time, we're like, I'm helping build brands, right? So using the communication skills that I have, it's combining the
Exactly.
design, the communication, and all of that, the understanding of how to be different, and how that can attract magazines and get PR and that sort of thing. That again, then is good for the brands that are in those projects. So that was one thing that I wasn't prepared for. In Finland, when I started doing things differently, a lot of magazines picked up on it. They're like, hey, what is this? You're like, your apartments look amazing and you're not charging crazy rents for them, because that was one thing I wanted everybody to be able to afford them, kind of. So I kept the rents at a lower rate, and that got a lot of publicity too. And that obviously made it easier to then again get more brand collaborations.
Of course, of course. And so it sounds like your work is the natural PR for you, right? And if you were not focusing or were not mindful on being unique, then basically you're just adding a rental to the market.
Yeah. Yeah, you're a
Yeah,
commodity. Like there's plenty of ice boxes. You can make one more. That's cool. Nobody's going to write an article about it.
right. Exactly, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So, one other topic that I think it's going to be extremely valuable to most of our or a lot of our audience are that everybody have busy life. Everybody are having their own struggle. What you have just mentioned, you became a mom, and that really turned everything around, and you that got you to a completely different journey. Um, I to be honest, I have a 2 years old, and I am about to have my second in March. So that
Oh,
is my
wow.
similar
I didn't
struggle.
know that. Wow,
Yeah,
congratulations.
exactly,
That's really cool. Do you get
exactly.
any sleep at all?
Thank you, thank you. Yeah. No, and sorry if I look bad about that. Yeah, I've been having lack of sleep, but
Yeah.
trying to be a better dad than a better money maker. So
Yeah.
this year has been very different to me. So I guess back to my questions. How did you find a balance between being a great mom and still be a successful business person, like business woman? Like how did you find a balance, and like how's the relationship between you and your kid has anything to do with your business journey?
Yeah. I don't think I have balance. I and I actually think that trying to strive for the balance puts another thing to the list that I'd be failing at. So I try to, and I think this is true especially for women. I don't know why, but there's something about mom guilt that is, it's just more and deeper than dad guilt. Like, do you even talk about dad guilt? I don't know, but mom guilt, man, shit, man. Ugh.
Exactly, that's a lot.
So, yeah. Here's the thing though. I know what it takes for me to be the best mom that I can. And this is something that I have to keep telling myself. And one of those things is I need to be challenged in my mind beyond just being a mom, right? So I need to be challenged on the business side as well. And when I do, and then come home from that, that's when I'm the best version of the type of mother that I am. So
Mhm.
but I struggle. And I think that's also a good measure for me. Like my kids are old enough, they're 5 and 6 now. They're old enough to tell me, they're like, Mom, you're working too much. And then I could be like, oh, whoa, like he's right. And then I need to cut back. So
Wow,
it's hard though.
beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
it is hard for sure, but it's also beautiful, in my eyes. Well, first of all, you has raised and the kid that would be would be bold enough to tell you, hey, mom, you're working too much. And second, you are the mom that you can even hear those comments from your kid. You need to know that a lot of parents out there, they are they hear what their kid are saying, but they don't listen.
Yeah.
Means those doesn't really get into their head. and you recognize that, you understand that, and you also respond to that. And that is
Yeah.
something that I have been learning tremendously since I become a father.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So I really resonate with you.
would you say also there's something truly valuable that you can teach your kids in showing them the joy that you have towards working? So one way I try to tell the kids is like, hey man, you know how much I love to be with you, right? Here's another thing that mom loves. Mom loves to make things beautiful, or mom loves to find good deals. And remember that apartment that you came with too? Like, did you see? Because they've been showing tenants apartments,
Mhm.
they've been to the bank, and I'm like, remember how happy they were? Mom loves to make people happy. So it doesn't take away my love for you guys. Like, I love being with you as well. But I also like, it's kind of the same. Like, you like to play with Oscar, right? You like to be with me as well, but you can do both things. So um, I think I
Wow.
think there's some valuable lessons for them to learn in that too.
For sure. For sure. This is so powerful. Um, the way that I've been handling this is I create a venture mode with my kid and say, hey,
Mm.
dad is about to go look for houses. You want to check out houses with daddy?
I
And
do. I want to
yeah,
come.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So yeah, I mean,
That's
I
smart.
yeah, I mean, we should share those tricks with each other, because those not only comfort the kid and also, better the relationship between, the parent and the kid. They know that
Yeah.
they I mean, they can
See?
sense that they no yeah, I mean, they can sense that they you care about them, and at the same time they would really enjoy. Oh, hi,
Speaking of which, Stella, you want to say hi? Want to say hi?
I'm Benjamin. What is your name?
I want to say hi. What's your name? It's Stella.
Stella. Wow,
Want to say bye?
beautiful name.
Say
It's awesome.
bye.
It's awesome.
Oh, whoops.
My kid is upstairs, and I hope one day we'll be able to meet again in person, and um you know have the kid play together.
That'd be
um
cool.
Maria, I think this interview has not only been delivering a lot of value to our audience, but also strengthen my belief that the friendship between us will be definitely extended. I
I
really
hope so.
resonate with what you're trying to do, and I appreciate you, being so transparent. And you may think that is oversharing, but those are really the thing that hit people, because they know that, hey, you are going through the exact same thing like we are. You are not just
Yeah.
someone who are distant and making huge money, and you are just saying that just for a story, right? So,
Yeah.
Maria, I really appreciate you coming today. Just the last few questions. I do want to help people, be able to learn what you do and reach out to you. So, I know you have Instagram, right?
Yes. That's where I hang out the most. Maria loves real estate. And
Awesome.
something that really hit me with what you said, it always comes down to authenticity, right? And do you follow Brene Brown? Have you read any of her books?
Brandy Brown?
Brene Brown. She's written
No.
awesome books about vulnerability and shame. And she says that without vulnerability, there can be no connection. And it all comes down to being you, being authentically you, and seeing the value and that you bring in your uniqueness.
Love it.
And I think that's what's always been important to me with Instagram, to have that vulnerability and openness, because that's the way I've been able to not create a following, but a community, people that I want to spend time with. And that I want to inspire and teach, and that inspire and teach me. So yeah, that's definitely key for me.
Awesome, awesome. And if you are listening, right, I hope you not only are here taking notes on what the lesson we have learned from our business journey, but also have really get resonated on when when you are choosing a journey, you can really have the joy along with the journey, not just
Yeah.
about making money. Um, and I do want to point out that Maria has a pitch blueprint that is free to download in her website, which we will include in our podcast notes. And she also have a personal brand consultation services. If you are interested, you have to reach out. Maria, anything you want to add?
Yeah, maybe remember what you asked when we met in San Diego. You asked about, and this could be true both ways, about finding a mentor or finding a team or finding whoever it is that you need, finding the person that you need. And it's one of the biggest challenges that I keep hearing all the time from my community or from my colleagues, real estate investors. They're like, how did you find Kelsey? How did you find Kata? How did you find Nini?
Right.
And also, how did you find your mentor and that sort of thing? And funny enough, most of the time, what I say to them is, well, they found me. And they found me because of two things, I think. One, because of the vulnerability and the openness. And two, because I said out loud what I needed. And I think that's why it's so cool. You're like, ooh, I'm so happy you came to the podcast. I'm like, well, you asked. And without the asking, it's hard, right? So it goes both ways. And to be able to do that, you need to know what unique spark you bring to this world. And there are a couple books that I can recommend for that. There's one that I recently read
Please.
that's called How the World Sees You by Sally Hogshead. And then the other one
Mhm.
is StrengthsFinder 2.0. And both of those have tests in them that will give you an assessment of not just how you see the world and the lens that you have, but how the world sees you. And because that's something that we talked about in San Diego too, right? So not everybody can be
Right.
this extrovert, bubbly, like, wow, person. And that's so good because wouldn't the world be so boring? And how
Exactly.
us like visionaries, I'm a typical visionary, needs an implementer. So that is really what changed everything for me when I found Kelsey and we started working together. So maybe that would be one, like read those books. And then Who Not How was a huge game changer for me as well. And then one
I love
more,
that.
I'm a book nerd. The last one
Please,
is
please, please.
Becoming Your Future Self Faster by Benjamin Hardy.
Awesome. I have
Yeah.
been reading the last two books and I love them. So if you have not read it, please go read it. Maria, let me thank you once again. I really appreciate you come back to the podcast. And anytime you have any story that you are willing to come back to a podcast to share with the audience, you're always welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Ben. This was sweet.